Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Travel Coffee Break. I'm Alistair Mackenzie, and as usual now, I've got Mike Young with me as well. Let me get rid of the screen share. There we go. Mike's going to this week talk about Delft, one of his destinations that he's got on his website, and he's done us another of those zippy little presentations. Mike, over to you.
Okay, I'll switch it over. Let's see, desktop.
I should say while he's doing that, Mike has a knack for going to all these places that I've almost been to, but not quite. And Delft is another one. I was looking at it on the map, and yeah, I've been to Rotterdam and Den Haag and Hook of Holland and all that kind of thing, but not to Delft. So here we go.
So, Alistair, can you see the photo now?
I can, yes.
Okay. So, as Alistair mentioned, today we're talking about Delft. It's a small, must-see city in South Holland. And when I say South Holland, I actually mean the province. And, the Netherlands is the country that I'm in and the country that this city is located in. And a lot of people around Europe call it Holland, but it's actually, the Netherlands. And there's 2 provinces out of the 12 provinces that are North and South Holland. So it's a city in South Holland. And just to kind of give everyone as a reference, the Netherlands is located here. And one of the things that visitors to Europe, and these would be more people from the U.S. because the people in the U.S. have a limited vacation compared to people here in Europe. We Amsterdam.
You're getting
go to Delft.
Hold on just a second, Mike.
And go to Paris.
Mike, just hold on a second because we're just getting that 5 o'clock dip in broadband, so you're breaking up a little. Just go back to the start of the.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so. What we've got is in the Netherlands. This is, of course, where the Netherlands is located. And what we do is there's a lot of travelers from the United States that's never been to Europe. So what we've done is we created a list of cities to see on their first-time visit to Europe. And, of course, in the U.S. they have less time to travel. So we put together a short itinerary of about a 10-day journey, which most Americans can do. And in this 10-day journey, we recommend seeing for that first-time visitor to Europe, Amsterdam, Delft, Antwerp, and Paris. And if people had a little bit more time, you could throw in Barcelona as well with that trip. And all of these are very easy to get to via rail. And of course, we're talking today about the one city, of course, would be Delft. And just to give you a reference of where it's located in the Netherlands, of course, here's Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Den Haag, and Delft.
It's very much wedged in between the two. There's barely any separation between Delft and The Hague, Den Haag.
Yeah, no, it's actually almost literally a suburb of Den Haag. In fact, the Den Haag is literally right outside where that A4 interstate is. Now there's other little community names, but the metropolitan area of Den Haag is literally on the opposite side of that A4 highway. So it's real close, and you can get from Den Haag Central to Delft in about, I guess, about 8 minutes by rail or by tram as well. So it's fairly accessible to get around in South Holland, and it's not that far from Rotterdam as well. Now, just to kind of give you a layout of Delft, all the things that I'm going to talk about are on this map, and you can see all the little pins, and it's really easy to walk from one destination to the other. The 2 outliers, or the 3 outliers, would be the Royal Delft factory, the Oostpoort, and the windmill. Those are the 2 places that are a little bit out of the ways, but again, we're only talking, at the most, the Royal Delft factory is maybe a 15-minute walk at most. So just kind of looking at a few things you'll see in Delft, because I know a lot of people are not that familiar with Delft except for maybe like the Delftware. The most iconic thing, of course, would be the Oostpoort, and these would be the remaining city wall gates. This is the only set or the only one that is left, and it's real nice to go through. You can't drive through, but there's a lot of people walking and biking through the old gates, old city gates, and of course there's a drawbridge right in front of the gates.
Classic, classic Dutch design, isn't it? Those pointy turrets on the top there.
The turrets and also the bridge, where you have kind of this counterbalance bridge that's being lifted by the arm, and it's a very iconic Dutch image of, and it's really neat to go see. In fact, everyone going, it's a little out of the ways, you have to look for it, but the Oostpoort is definitely really worth seeing. The other image you see is the old city hall. Then I mentioned, of course, the canals. There's lots of canals, like in Amsterdam, all over the city. There's canals making its way throughout the city. It's more in a grid formation, not like in Amsterdam, where in Amsterdam it's like a horseshoe formation. This is more gridded. Below that, you'll see one of the buildings along the way. It's the Gemeentelands house. And that's now actually the water board for Delft is located in that building.
All right.
And then, of course, there's a windmill. It's not a working windmill as far as being used or being shown. In fact, when we visited, it was closed to the public because they were actually doing rail work literally right on the other side of this.
All right.
So I think the Dutch rail system now holds it, I believe, or owns it. I think they're going to open it back up to the public once all that work is done.
Excellent. Okay.
A few other things you might see is bikes. There's lots of bikes involved.
No. Surely not.
Yeah, lots of bikes. And this would be, just kind of a typical image walking through Delft is what you would see. And of course, again, more canals and more bikes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lovely
antex you would see as you walk through Delft. It's a very quaint, small city. I recommend people, spend one night in Delft. That means, spend possibly a whole day, or get there, let's say around noontime, spend the one day there, spend the night, and then leave sometime around noon the next day. And you can see and do a lot of things in Delft during that time period. Looking at Delft plays a fairly important historical role in the Netherlands, and part of that is at Het Prinsenhof Museum. The Prinsenhof was actually a former cloister, and as many of the countries in North Europe during the Reformation, the Dutch people decided to break away from the Catholic Church. And this started the 80-year war with Spain, because Spain was actually controlling the Netherlands at that time. And, of course, Belgium was part of the Netherlands at that time. And the prince at that time, he actually, of course, here's where the Prinsenhof is located. The Prince, William of Orange, took over this cloister and turned it into his home. And now, of course, it's a museum. And what's interesting is as the war progressed, the Spanish king put a hit
bounty
on this prince, a bounty on him, and he actually hired an assassin. So it was literally, he was assassinated shortly after the war started. And you can see on the stairwell here, this is supposedly where the bullet hole was from the assassination. Now, what's interesting about this museum, it's more of a museum for Dutch people and that are into Dutch history. But they do have something interesting. You can go, they actually did like a CSI show to prove whether that bullet hole was original or not, and they proved that it wasn't the original bullet hole, or they don't think it's the original bullet hole.
Right.
But they still have it, framed where it actually happened with a plaque there. But even though they say, hey, it's probably not the actual bullet hole.
Now, what would be interesting is to know where in the chronological order of Williams of Orange he came, because famously we're tied up in the UK with this because it was Prince of Orange who came over to England in 1788 and became, had what's called the Glorious Revolution when they took over took over on behalf of the Protestants the throne of England. So William and Mary were King and Queen of Spain, of England. So we're bound up with this guy, and I'm not sure whether it's this William of Orange or
Yeah, I was
whether
going to
it's
say there are lots of Williams of Orange. This is the father. This was the
family name.
original one. This one died in 1584, I believe, or 1580 something. I think it's 1584 is when he died. I could be wrong. It could be 1585 or 1581, but it's in the early 1580s is when he was assassinated.
I do remember that the one that William and Mary came when they came over. They came from Helvoetsluis, which must be nearby.
Yeah, well, this guy, like I said, he was assassinated. I'm not sure where that's located, but all of the kings, even now, the king we currently have, of course, is Willem Alexander.
Yeah.
So, that King Willem, if you look, Willem in Dutch or William in English, if you look in here, they actually have all of the prince. Of course, this individual was actually a prince, not a king.
Mm.
But later, all the kings were named Willem or William, except for obviously the queens, and there was actually one queen named Wilhelmina, which would be a feminine version of that name.
Yep.
But this guy, I think the guy you're talking about, actually, I think became the first king of the Netherlands, and I think that was in the 1700s after I think Napoleon was defeated.
Right. No, Napoleon was Napoleon was defeated in 18 something. Oh God, we're going to get in so much historical trouble here, aren't we?
Yeah. But I think after the defeat of Napoleon, or one of the Willems came in and became the first king of the Netherlands.
Okay. Note to self: must book
father of the Netherlands,
professor of history for these hangouts.
Yes. So that's definitely, like I said, it's more for Dutch people, but definitely if you're a history buff, you can definitely find it, somewhat entertaining. This is, like I said, it plays a significant portion in the history of this nation.
Mm-hmm.
Moving along, of course, the other thing people think about when they think of the Netherlands is the Royal Delft factory, and this would be where the Delft pottery or Delftware is produced. And you can take a tour of the museum and the factory. And I highly recommend this for anybody because, like I said, the Prinsenhof Museum was more geared towards Dutch people and Dutch history. This is geared towards an international audience, the Royal Delft factory. And, the museum itself is somewhat entertaining, but what I really enjoyed is you actually get to walk around. Now, there are certain paths and pathways you have to walk through, but you actually get a fairly open view of the factory and all of the different processes involved in making this. And there were quite a number of Delftware producers back during the Golden Age, and now this is whittled down to just this one. And I think there may be one other one, but this is the main one. This is the one that's been in existence, I think, the whole time. So it's kind of the remaining one. And you can watch people, of course, in the museum where they're hand painting these items ready to be fired. But of course, there's also paint areas in the factory where people are doing this on the factory floor as well. But again, it's a very interesting place to visit, and I definitely recommend it as a place to see.
And everybody will recognize instantly that iconic Dutch style. It's Delft blue is what it's what it's famous for. It's that blue on white style of pottery, and you see it in so many places, and not just on plates and things like that. But there's all those little Dutch houses. In fact, if you look at the event page for this hangout, you'll see a row of Delft pottery houses, little Dutch houses in blue and white as well.
And the one thing that's also interesting, there is one the Nachtwatch or the Night Watch by Rembrandt. They actually have it fired in Delft tileware on the wall.
Oh wow.
And it's, I think, pretty close to original size. So I don't know if you've ever seen the actual Nacht watch or the night
Big.
watch.
It's a
In,
big thing. It's like a whole
it's,
frieze, isn't it?
it's a big painting. I mean, especially when you think the time when which it was produced, it's a huge painting.
Hmm.
And they have, it may not be the original size, but it's pretty close to it. It's a big wall of these tiles. So that's definitely, all obviously in all a neat museum to see. Moving along, the other thing is the Dutch artist and the Vermeer Centrum here.
Yeah,
And
we missed.
It's a museum worth seeing.
Your sound broke up again. What you were saying was this. This is actually the birthplace of Vermeer, isn't it?
That's correct. Delft is the birthplace for Vermeer, and they have the Vermeer Centrum here and his style of art, and it really goes in deep on how he did it, perspective, color, shading. He used a very small palette. He didn't use that many. Actually have all photos or images of all his paintings, all 34 of his paintings, because during his career he only produced 34 works.
Oh.
And out of those 34 works, only 7 remain here in the Netherlands, and none of them are in Delft. So there's 3 in Den Haag and 4 in Amsterdam. And the 4 are in the Rijksmuseum, and the other 3 that are in Den Haag are in the Mauritius House, which just reopened a month or so ago. And the Vermeer Centrum does a really good job, like I say, of explaining his use of perspective and also his use of those colors and shading. And you can see this is a photo of my wife, but they actually have that color set up and that light set up where you can take a photo. They actually kind of put, the little thing where you put your camera and you take your photo from that point, and it gives you that perspective of that light and of that color and whatnot. And obviously, there are some colors that you have on your clothes that deviate from that, but you can take a photo of yourself or of your loved one in that type of light and then that type of setting.
I was thinking she looked familiar. That's really clever. I really like that idea.
It really is, and it's when you go to the museum, it's not a huge museum, but it really makes you think. And the other thing is they talk about the camera obscura. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
Yep.
Towards the end of Vermeer's career, they attributed some of his artwork to using this device, which was a device that projected an image onto a surface, and they're saying that he, of course, somehow traced these items during some of the paintings.
Yeah, it'd be the obvious way, wouldn't it, for landscapes in particular?
Yeah, and you would think it would have affected the artwork, but obviously not, since there's so few of his pieces out there. And even the museum talks about that he possibly used this device for some of his works, his later works. It's still, like I said, it does a good job of explaining, because you get to see all the not original ones, but all of his artworks there. They have all 34 pieces depicted there. They have, what his studio may have looked like. They also have all of these issues talking about the camera obscura. So I thought it was a real interesting place to visit. Yeah,
not least because what he was doing was a kind of a step change in technique, wasn't it?
It was. In a way, it was almost photoreal images. And if you look at the girl with the pearl earring, you look at it, if it didn't have all the cracks,
that could be an Instagram, couldn't it?
Had more shine to it. Probably looked pretty much like a photo of what we see today. So that's one thing worth seeing. Now the other thing is the Nieuwe Kerk, or the New Church, and that's located right across from the City Hall. Now, I'm not a real religious guy, but there are reasons to go to this church, even if you're not religious. The one reason is this is the actual burial place for all of the royals of the Netherlands.
Oh, right.
And if you see the image to the right, this is actually the top part of the tomb. The tomb is actually underground, so they actually have this huge stone door that they lift. They actually bring in a little small crane and lift that door out of the way, and there's a set of staircases that descend underneath this.
Oh, wow.
And the royals are buried underneath this, but this is the memorial of William of Orange. This is, actually where you see the statue of him right in front of us in the center. And this is, where, like I said, if you're a king or a queen in the Netherlands, and you're going to end up underneath this tomb, or in this tomb. The other thing that's really nice
do they still, I mean, just as an anecdotally, do they still have space for more royals down there?
Yeah, there's plenty of spaces down. There's plenty of space actually extended, and they actually have a little photo history, a little diagram and a little photo history in the church itself. And there's enough room. They actually extended it to make more room, and there's plenty of room for all the Dutch royals for a fair amount of time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's really something to see. And like I said, when you see it on TV, and when they drop down and they go down to it, and you go to the church, you're like, well, where is it? But then you see the tomb or the stone piece that they lift out of the way. But the other thing that's really neat is you can take a separate tour and go up to the top and get a really nice bird's eye view of the city. And you can actually go to several of the areas. You can go under the clock, which is the photo on the left.
Mm-hmm.
But you can go, there's another area up above that where you can actually go, and you can actually see the clock mechanism that actually operates the clock.
Cool.
And when we were there, it just so happened it was playing one of the chimes, and you could actually see the little studs on the piece actually actuate the
right.
the chimes for it. So I found it really fascinating.
That wheel there with the handle on it, is that actually a winding wheel, or is it more an adjusting wheel?
I don't know, because there's no one there and I couldn't get close to it. It was actually blocked off. I think it's probably more for setup.
Mm.
I think now it's probably, I'm not 100% sure whether it's driven off of motors, winding this or not. So I'm not 100% sure. But, the gears portion itself actually does work. Again, I'm not sure whether or not it uses the weights as they did in the past where you wind it up, or a spring, but I think it uses the motors with the original mechanism.
Cool.
And this was actually the second one, or the latest one. They actually, below this, there's a museum in the tower that shows the older mechanism with the older bells.
Now, my recommendation quite often for first-time visits to cities is to aim for an attraction like this at the beginning. Always climb the tower at the beginning of your tour, because then you've got the photograph looking out. You can orientate yourself when you're going up, when you start off on high, and it kind of sets you up for everything else that you visit.
That's a real good idea, because from there you can see the windmill, you can see the old church, because this is the new church. You can see the old church, you can see the city square. So that's actually a really good recommendation. You can also see the Oostpoort as well. So you can see most everything from this tower. Mm. So moving along to the next thing is, of course, the old church. And the old church is just a few minutes walk from the new church. And when you see the old church, the first thing you see, if you look at the image on the left, that's not my camera lens tilting that tower. That tower is actually tilted like that. And when you see it, it's not quite as tilted as the Tower of Pisa. It's actually stopped moving, but it's got a significant tilt to that tower. And if you see the tree, that tree is straight, but that tower is really leaning. So that itself, just to see that, is pretty interesting. But if you go inside, there is an incredible amount of stained glass, but there's also several individuals that are buried here, and of course Vermeer is buried here. The other person that's buried here is one of the other significant persons in Delft history, and that's Anthony van Leeuwenhoek. And he was the discoverer or the inventor of the microscope and the father of microbiology.
All right.
Yeah, yeah. So, and they actually, him and Vermeer were friends with each other. So this was during that same that golden age period in the Netherlands. So and if you look, you can see Vermeer's burial portion or burial stone
Hmm.
right there, and then to the right of it was where Leeuwenhoek's burial place is.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and most of these, the old church and the new church are fairly inexpensive to get into. Um,
You said earlier on that you said, well, I'm not a particularly religious guy, but it's worth going, and that hangs true for me, actually, even more so for me, because I'm usually not by definition a church person. But you think there's enough there of interest for somebody who's not necessarily absolutely obsessed with religious iconography and that kind
yeah,
of thing.
and the way I look at it is that again, I'm not a religious person, and I don't go to churches to see religious items.
Hmm.
But during this time period, and for many centuries, all of the wealth of communities were put into the church.
Yeah.
And a lot of this was, so all the architectural development, all the artwork, all of this was put into the church in most of these communities throughout Europe. So what you're doing is you're looking into a window, whether you're a religious person or not, you're looking at the artwork from that generation, architecture
Hmm.
from that generation, and that's where all of any creativity in that time period was put into. So if you're skipping some of the churches when you travel, what you're doing is that time period when these communities were founded, you're skipping all that creative technique or all that artwork of that generation.
That's a
Or
very good. That's a
generation.
very good point. It's yeah, so a cultural museum.
It really and that's exactly what it is. And just looking at this and you see the stained glass, and of course that was not at the time where the church was built. This was put in later. But again, you see these items in churches all through Europe, and that's why we try to go to churches when we visit places, strictly from the fact that it is a method of seeing, like you said, it's a museum of that time period.
Excellent.
So these would be, the two churches I'd definitely recommend seeing in Delft. The next place, next things we'll talk about a little bit is eating. Every Saturday there's a market in Delft, and it's not a great market, but it's an okay market to visit. In and around the city, they have a lot of used stuff you can buy, kind of antiques. But there's also a food market where you can buy fresh fruits and vegetables. Obviously, there's cheese available, and as you could imagine as well, flowers. Lots of flowers in most of Dutch markets. Moving on to places kind of to eat, one of the places I found that's kind of original to Delft is this place called Frito Misto. It's a little French fry place, and they kind of cater to original Dutch style foods, which would of course be French fries. It's a very Belgium Dutch thing.
Hmm.
As I mentioned, Belgium was originally part of the Netherlands, but they also have these meatballs. They call them gehaktballs. You can get them, and this place makes all of their own stuff. They take potatoes, fresh potatoes, and they fry them twice. They make all of their own sauces, their own mayonnaise and sauces for their fries, and everything is freshly prepared there. So this is definitely a neat place to visit.
Is the looking up there at the menu? I can't see, but do they have a menu in English as well, or the
It's in
Dutch? The Dutch
Dutch.
all
I
the Dutch
mean,
all speak English anyway. So
yeah, yeah. In the Netherlands, you're safe. Everyone's going
yeah.
to speak English, so you can just say, "I want large fries. I want the meatball," or you can even just ask them what's good, and they'll tell you. So this is you got to remember also Delft is a university town,
Yeah.
and everyone speaks English
Yeah.
there in Delft.
Yeah.
There might be a few people that don't, but yeah, I mean, you'll be okay in all of the Netherlands. You'll be okay getting around with English only. Another place is Cafe Zondag. They do sandwiches. They have this lemon honey mint tea that's actually pretty good. Iced tea that's pretty good.
Mhm.
They do a real good job with their sandwiches, and it's a fairly reasonably priced place to go eat. Not too far from there is a place called Hills and Mills.
Are these all around the central that market square or?
Exactly. They're a little off the market square. I wouldn't eat anything right on the market square, but these are streets one street over.
Mhm.
So they're right outside the market square.
Okay.
These are not tourist places. These are more local. So every place I mentioned on here are places kind of where locals eat. And they do a decent job. It's not going to be excellent food, but it's all good food and it's all reasonably priced.
Do they have websites for the most part? Can we link to them in the show notes?
You can. I have them all on my where to eat and where to sleep
Oh
page.
yes, and we should just say that of course on Mike's site, which if I do a quick screen share, I can probably show you instantly here. This is Mike's site, and if you look for Delft, which I seem to remember is hold on, I'm trying to scroll the wrong window there. Here we are. If you scroll to Delft and then click on it, you'll go straight to all of these notes and all of these places, and you can again click your way through. So that's the easy way of doing it. But I'm taking over your presentation now, Mike. I'll get out of it there and switch back to you.
So
there. Okay.
Am I back on?
You are, yes, double click. Yes, you are. Yep.
Yeah, let's see. I got this one real quick. Yeah, when I hit a button there. So anyway,
okay. I would have put these up on the this new facility that Hangouts have got showcase, but it appears they've slightly changed the system once again this week. This week's change is that you really do need to get the showcase app up and running before you create the Hangout itself. So that's why we haven't got it. But I will remind anybody watching that if you want to, there is the Q&A app. If you press the little button that says Q&A, you can actually ask questions, and they'll appear by magic on our screens. Carry on, Mike. Sorry.
No problem. No problem. So another place is Cafe Kek. That's K-E-K. Also a very similar place. This is more kind of a coffee place and hangout as well. But they serve a similar menu with kind of these open face sandwiches, and all of these places, like I said, they're outside of the market, so they're centrally located, but they're easy enough to get to, and they're reasonably priced, and they offer a decent food. Another place is this Kobus and Sorcha Bakery.
Oh.
And they have, to the right of this, actually have a cafe where you can actually eat there.
Mm.
But this is their takeaway place, so you can actually go in, and they have fresh cakes of the day.
Oh my God! This is a travel blogger magnet.
Yeah.
I could think of a squillion travel bloggers who would disappear in here and not be seen again.
Yeah, and it's a very small place, but you can go and buy stuff to go. What we normally do is we'll visit one of the places that we just showed. We'll grab a lunch there, and we normally don't spend the night because for us it's about an hour and a half, hour and 40-minute train ride for us.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just do it as a day trip. But we'll grab one of these pastries and whatnot, or cakes, to take home with us on the train. So they do close early, or even sometimes when they run out of stuff, they'll close. So you have to be mindful of that. So I know several times we went there, and of course they were either closed or ran out, or ran out.
Mm-hmm.
So we were out of luck. But several times we went there and picked up cookies or cakes or pies, and this is definitely a place worth visiting. And just the last place, one time we did meet your friend there, and we stopped over. He's a Indonesian place, and this is what you do is when you order a rice toffel, you order it for everyone there. So they'll say a rice toffel for 3 people, and they'll just keep bringing out these small little plates of food. And of course, you share this food with everybody, but there's more than enough food. You're gonna be hard pressed to eat everything, and you have like maybe 15 to 20 different little portions to try. And this place, it's a pretty good place. I've been to other places in Amsterdam that were were a little bit better, but this one's good, and it's not that super expensive, so it's a reasonable price place to eat as well.
And there is a tradition of Indonesian cuisine in Holland, not least because of the connection, the historic connection. There are so many, Indonesian diaspora in Holland, largely a result of things like the what's it called, the Dutch East Indies.
That's correct. The Indonesia was actually a colony from the Netherlands for many years, and the Dutch people took some of that. Obviously there was a lot of people that immigrated here from Indonesia, but the Dutch also used a lot of that and took a lot of their diet or their menu or their food from the Indonesians as well, and it's part of the culture now here in the Netherlands.
Yes, firmly embedded.
It is, but the Dutch menu itself, there's not a whole lot of traditional Dutch cuisine here. I mean, there are some, but
well, you mentioned earlier the fried things,
or France.
Yeah.
So the Dutch have taken cuisines from a lot of their colonies and use it as their own, and now chicken satay is a part of Dutch cuisine. As much as fries and gehaktballs and stamppot. So it's definitely worth, if you're in the Netherlands, to check out, and if you spending the night here, try a rice toffel, whether it's in Delft at this place, which, like I said, is a good place to go, or if you go to some place in Amsterdam.
All right. Okay.
But that's it for this episode, and of course, as this is the link to the website.
Excellent.
So if you want, you want to take it back over.
Yep. Okay. That's brilliant. Thanks for that, Mike. I love it when you do these little slideshows. Do you put a lot of work into them? I worry that you've spent 2 days slaving over a hot screen.
No. Well, a lot of the photos are done when we put the little presentations together. I use a Mac, so Apple does a really good job of making the ability to make these presentations on Keynote. Instead of PowerPoint, it's Keynote. I'll put together. I'll maybe work I guess 2 hours on a presentation like this and put these together.
Oh, that's right.
But a lot of the photos, like I said, the photos are straight from the website. So the ones I'll have to pull the original ones. The smaller photos that you see, I just copy paste them directly from the website. The larger ones, I have to go to my files and pull the original ones because my website has the compressed versions of the files, because obviously I can't put 24 megapixel images on my website. But I'll pull some of the larger images in and bring that across. That takes the most time, is just grabbing the full size images from my system and bringing that in. And then the rest of it, all the animation, that's quick to do. That's real easy with Apple. Cool. So, yeah, like I said, the biggest thing is just wrangling all the photos and figuring out what I'm going to say, because as I'm doing and putting this together, it's, just going back over my notes and the website. Because when you do these things, for many of the dates become kind of, all mixed up, and you have to kind of review. Oh, when was this? I know it was in, like I said, in the 1580s when William of Orange was assassinated. And I know, but, what the actual date was. And I had to go back and look to see, did the war start, the 80-year war start before he was assassinated, or was it due to after? And yeah, of course, it's war started first, and then there was this assassination. But, like I said, a lot of it's just kind of refreshing myself on these items, because, when you travel so much, a lot of these, you kind of forget the specifics. You remember a lot of the general items, and yeah, it's the 80-year war, and yeah, it's a prince and all, but some of the dates, and sometimes they, especially at my age, they don't stay there like they used to when I was younger.
Your age, yeah, okay. So, well, I'm hoping that next week I might be able to let you off the hook, because one of the things that we were going to try and include this week was the Good Hotel Guide, which this year's edition was launched on Monday, and Adam Raphael and Desmond Balmer are the authors. And Desmond, who I've known for a long time, used to be the travel editor of the Observer. I was hoping I might be able to get into today's show, but it didn't happen. But there's some hope we might be able to do that next week. So that would be interesting to talk about that. And there's a couple of other subjects that you and I have mentioned as well that I'm trying to get into the editions. So okay. hopefully next week we'll be giving you a break. I mean, I'd still want you to be here, but you don't have to prep something at the moment.
No problem. Yeah, I'll definitely be here.
and then the week.
I'll definitely be here. So yeah, okay. Yeah. But if you had something as well, that'd be okay with me as well.
Cool. Okay. And the following week, which is Wednesday, off the top of my head, the 23rd, I think, we won't be here because I will be on my way to TBEX, actually at TBEX in Athens, Travel Blogger Exchange. Mike, you're not going to that one, are you? I think.
No, I'm missing that one, but I am going to WTM
in November.
In November, which I believe is 2 weeks after.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so what I will do that week, it'll be I will do a hangout. It'll probably be a fairly brief one. In fact, I may do, as I tried to do in Nantes, some pop-up hangouts, and we'll see how that goes. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But in the meantime, Mike, thanks again, brilliant presentation, and we'll be back here as usual next week, Wednesday, 5 o'clock UK time, 6 o'clock in Europe, midday in America on the East Coast, and 9 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast. So with any luck, you can all join us then. For now, bye for now.